All right. So there's another major story that came out this week, Cody. And this one's huge. I mean, it's so funny. Well, I shouldn't say funny because that's the wrong word. It's so insane. I should say stupidly insane that we're still in 2022 and we're still going through this crap. Brian Flores filed a lawsuit against the NFL for basically racially charged unemployment.
Right.
I think that's the best way to say it, because the Giants, if you don't know what's going on, Brian Flores was fired by the Dolphins, which is part of the whole lawsuit. But we'll get into that for a second. He's looking for a job. He has an interview with the New York Giants. He gets a text on, I believe it was that Saturday.
Yeah, I think so.
It was the Saturday before he was supposed to interview. So this is 3 days before he's going to interview with the Giants. He gets a text from Bill Belichick, his former head coach that he had worked with the Patriots. And Belichick basically says, "Hey, congratulations on getting the job." And Flores is like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like, "Oh, you signed." And he was like, "Are you thinking I'm Dable?" And he's like, "Oh my God, I totally messed up.
Yeah.
Sorry about that." And so Flores ends up going to the interview anyway. He interviews. Obviously, he doesn't get the job. They announce that Brian Dable gets the job. Crazy, because now it looks like they were just doing it for the Rooney Rule, had no intention of even possibly hiring him. Now, do I think Brian Dable is a fine coach? Yes. But at least give Flores a fair shot.
Yeah.
And that's the issue that you're having here. Then it comes out later that the Dolphins fired Brian Flores because, first of all, he wouldn't tank games.
Right.
He wouldn't take $100,000 check for each loss that they got. And, excuse me, sorry, Rona. And they were saying that, oh, well, we're firing him because we're bumping heads. We're not.
He's hard to work with or something like that. Yeah.
The reason that he's hard to work with is because he won't lose.
Right.
He refused to lose. And there's another story out there that said that he wanted to get Justin Herbert. He didn't want Tua, and they went after Tua. So it's really starting to look like, first of all, the Miami Dolphins wanted to lose. They wanted to get better draft picks. And also it seems like they didn't want to do literally anything for Flores. It just seemed like they were using him as a scapegoat to kind of get through some years until they get a coach that they wanted. That's what it looks like to me. It's just, I can't believe we're still going through this stuff. I mean, it's so dumb. It is so dumb. Why? I mean, I'm okay if they hire Brian Dable, but you have to at least give Flores a chance. They had already made up their mind.
Right.
They weren't even going to, I mean, they're just going through the motions, which is worse almost.
Yeah.
You just be like, well, we just got to do it because we have to do it. And it's like, okay, well, what if Flores actually blew you away? What if Brian Flores was actually the right guy, but because you already say, oh, I want Brian Dable, you're stuck with I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand it. And I hope something comes out of it, because I'm sick of, it just kind of being like, oh, this is really bad. And then it being swept under the rug. Kind of like this whole Raiders situation where, John Gruden with the emails was let go, which was the right move. But nothing happened with the Washington football team, now Washington Commanders. Nothing happened to them. Nothing else. And they're like, oh, well, because they cooperated, we're not gonna investigate. Well, you've already investigated. You have all the evidence. You kind of have to do it. It's not like you're a cop and there's a murder and you go, well, he did murder that one girl, but he helped out with like 5 other murders. So we're just going to let him. No, he still murdered someone. He's still going to be in jail. Sorry.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's how the law works. But thanks for we might cut your sentence a little bit. That's about all you're going to get. You're still going to go to jail.
Yeah. I think what I'm disappointed with, and again, so I'm in the position that I'm very glad that Brian Flores has done this. I side with him. I think that there is an obvious implicit bias in the NFL and in terms of head coaching. I mean, I was listening to First Take this morning, and Marvin Lewis was on, and currently right now he's coaching Arizona State along with Herm Edwards. But, you know, in the last 3.5 years, I think he's gotten like 6 opportunities to interview for head coaching, and none of them kind of came from anything, even though he had, I think, like 15 years with the Bengals. And it's just kind of weird. He hasn't gotten another head coaching NFL job. And, you know, I'm not saying he's a bad coach, but I mean, 15 years as a head coach, you don't find that experience to be really helpful. I mean, look at the Giants. They probably could have used that better than Joe Judge and what they had there. But, you know, nevertheless, Marvin Lewis mentioned that, you know, Hugh Jackson has been for some reason not in the league anymore. For some reason, we don't know. And I thought he was a decent coach. I mean, I know he had a bad tenure in Cleveland, but he had a good one with the Raiders. He had a good rapport when he was in Cincinnati. So why all of a sudden was he basically out of the NFL? And the whole Brian Flores basically being fired for having 2 consecutive winning seasons, and one of them getting into the playoffs, one of them making a playoff push, and then he get let go unceremoniously, which is very strange. And if I were the Giants, I mean, a logical thought would have been, I want to retain him because look what he did to Miami Dolphins defense. And imagine what he could have done with the Giants defense and all their weapons and assets that they had, because they had a kind of an up and coming defense. They just needed an offense that doesn't turn the ball over, and they could have actually been decent, you know. But I think what's sad is, you know, not that all these other coaches aren't qualified for head coaching jobs, but it's just, you know, there's minority or person of color coaches such as Brian Flores or Marvin Lewis or Hugh Jackson. Those are just the 3 off the top of my head. But look at Eric Bieniemy. This is like his 3rd offseason of head coach rumors, and he's not hired as a head coach yet. And I don't know what more evidence you need that he is a outstanding head coach. I mean, when Eric Bieniemy was in Kansas City with Matt Nagy, there's rumors that Matt Nagy wasn't really that offensive creative guru that we all suspect. It was Eric Bieniemy kind of leading that offense. And Nagy was kind of just taking the credit, and that's how he got the Bears job, you know? And I mean, and it just kind of goes to show, like, you mean to tell me that Eric Bieniemy is not any more qualified than all these other, you know, white candidates that they're now hiring. And, you know, Denver Broncos, Miami Dolphins, I believe, and the New York Giants were the 3 teams that were put on the civil suit that Brian Flores had filed. And then there's reports that like John Elway and I forgot who his assistant was at the time. They show up to the meeting hungover an hour late to Brian Flores' interview, and it was all sorts of madness in that story. And it just seems like this is the unfortunate truth of probably what the NFL is now that it's being brought to light, and rightfully so. It's just what more will come from it. And it's just kind of weird how when it came to the John Gruden thing, and I heard this from someone on Twitter, it's funny how the NFL was quicker to action when it came to the John Gruden scandal than they are to this. They are so dismissive on this point of it that they don't even want to address it. But on the John Gruden thing, they couldn't have been any quicker in terms of what they demanded in terms of action for the Raiders to get rid of John Gruden. Rightfully so. But, you know, they cared about equality then, but now all of a sudden they're not caring about it so much now. I just, you know, and again, I know some people will make the argument, you know, do you want a handout? And it's not a handout, it's an opportunity. You know, like, would you like it if you had more qualifications than the guy that got hired, all because they didn't give you a proper opportunity to showcase why you deserve the position, even though you have, again, better qualifications than the guy that they are going to hire, even though that they haven't given neither of you the correct amount of time to figure that out, you know? Yeah. So hopefully this turns out to be a positive thing for equality, but it's a long road. I mean, who knows what's going to come about of it? I don't know if you saw it on Twitter earlier today, but there's a lot of people that are actually wanting the Raiders to hire Brian Flores in some sort of capacity, which I would love. My only thing is I don't know if Brian Flores will want to go for a coordinator job when he just got let go as a head coach and he proven that he's a good head coach, So that's my only thing about that. But I would love to have him on the staff. I mean, if he was the defensive coordinator, I would love it. That would be like a dream. But I don't know if he'd want to take a step down from where he was just because he was fired for being hard to work with,
Well, I think the case you can make is it's going to be hard for him to get an NFL head coaching job now after the lawsuit.
Uh-huh.
Because there are going to be some owners who are going to want to suck up to, Roger Goodell and the NFL because, they kind of work well with each other. And so they're not going to want to ruffle, all these feathers and, basically be the Raiders of the NFL. And I think that's a good argument for Raider Nation. I think this is one of the few fan pushed agendas that I really agree with, that I think has some validity to it, which would be Brian Flores should come to the Raiders because, first of all, Roger Goodell already hates the Raiders. The NFL officiating crew already hates the Raiders.
Right.
So, most of the owners I don't think really are huge fans of Mark Davis. So go ahead and get Brian Flores. They made him let go John Gruden, which again was the right move. But at the same time, like nothing else is happening like that anywhere else.
Right.
So it kind of just seems like it was a Raider thing, not necessarily a what John Gruden did thing.
Right.
And so if I were Mark Davis, I would strongly go to Dave Ziegler, strongly go to Josh McDaniels and say, hey, you guys already worked with Brian Flores in New England. Why don't you go get him as your defensive coordinator? And let's be the old school Raiders of the 70s and the 80s, where we're just going to kick you in the teeth. We don't care what the NFL says. We're here to win games and beat you up while we're doing it. And God, Brian Flores would be the perfect man for that. It would be so awesome. I don't know how. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say it would be incredible. I mean, I would love it 100%. I mean, make him the defensive coordinator. And I think there's a position within NFL coaching, and I'm not sure 100%. I think I've heard it a couple of times, but like a special assistant to the head coach, which basically you're like the second in command outside of your coordinators. I mean, you can have him have that title as well as defensive coordinator. And imagine him and Josh McDaniels pairing, again, both coming from Bill Belichick Patriots coaching tree. I mean,
that'd be so cool.
That would be absolutely ridiculous. And I think, just before we go through the draft, I think the Raiders would have a great shot at, even if they retain most of the talent, being extremely good with the additional better coaching. Like it would just be a level above what we just experienced. So,
and I don't know how all the lawsuit stuff is going to go. I don't know if he's, Brian Flores is going to be completely engulfed into that. I don't know if there's going to be, a little bit of time set aside where he could maybe be at least a special advisor to the team or something. But I think if you're the Raiders, you need to strongly consider going after Brian Flores. If you want to get those wins, you want to get the fans really into the season, go after Brian Flores, man. Raider fans would love sticking it to the NFL. And honestly, I'm almost 100% positive Mark Davis would love to stick it to the NFL. And then Josh McDaniels coming from Bill Belichick, I'm sure he'd be all aboard on it. Like he was with the Patriots for so long. He understands that the NFL is not always fair. And then getting Brian Flores, God, that would just be so great. So
yeah,
go after him, Raiders.